Angel Reese just could not help herself. She had the basketball world's full attention for one night, for one genuinely impressive rebounding performance, and instead of just letting that moment breathe, she turned it into a headline about the NBA. Yes, the NBA, a league she has never played a single second in. That is not an exaggeration. That is exactly what came out of her mouth on a live post-game broadcast. And by the next morning, half of basketball social media was talking about it for reasons that had nothing to do with her actual rebounding numbers. And the timing could not have been more revealing either. This comment did not come out of nowhere, floating in a vacuum. It came during a stretch where Clark has completely dominated the WNBA conversation, where every highlight reel, every ratings report, and every sold-out road arena has her name attached to it. Reese is a good player having a strong statistical season, but she has not been the center of the basketball world's attention in months. So when a golden opportunity landed in her lap, a legitimate record-breaking performance that could have kept the spotlight on her for at least a day or two, she found a way to make sure people were still talking about her, just maybe not for the reason she wanted. Let's give credit where credit is genuinely due first, because this part is not up for debate. Reese hauled in 26 rebounds that night against the Sparks, breaking Shameik Holdsclaw's single-game record of 24 that had stood since 2003. She also pushed past Aja Wilson's single-season rebounding mark, sitting at 458 boards for the year with games still left to play. That is a real, legitimate record-setting performance, and nobody serious about basketball is trying to take that away from her. Rebounding has been the one part of her game that critics simply cannot argue with night after night, season after season. But then a reporter, clearly trying to give her a nice moment, brought up the NBA in a lighthearted way, comparing her rebounding pace to some historical NBA numbers. And instead of just laughing it off or saying something humble about focusing on her own league, Reese leaned into the mic and said it herself out loud on camera for everyone to hear. No, I don't, because I be setting NBA records too. Read that again. She said she is setting NBA records in the WNBA, while playing exclusively in the WNBA. The room reacted immediately, and so did the internet, because you simply cannot say something like that and expect it to just quietly disappear into the post-game notes. Here is the problem with that statement, and it is not complicated. The NBA and the WNBA are two entirely separate leagues, with separate record books, separate history, and separate players who have spent decades building those numbers. Dennis Rodman averaged over 18 rebounds a game in some seasons, guarding some of the tallest, strongest athletes on the planet, night after night, across an 82-game grind. Wilt Chamberlain once pulled down 55 rebounds in a single game. Those are NBA records. Reese setting a WNBA single-game and single-season rebounding record is impressive on its own terms, and it did not need the NBA comparison attached to it to matter. Adding it in only made the achievement look smaller, not bigger, because now instead of talking about her actual accomplishment, everyone is talking about the weird comment tacked onto the end of it. And this is where things get even more awkward, because that same exact game gave the internet a completely different storyline about Reese, one that had nothing to do with records and everything to do with her offense simply not showing up. In the first quarter, Reese drove into the paint trying to finish an easy look near the rim, and Cameron Brink, a player who is not exactly known as an offensive juggernaut herself, stayed in front of her, stayed disciplined, and blocked the shot clean. Reese came right back at her on the very next attempt, and Brink shut that one down too, without even needing to leave her feet the second time. 2 clean denials, back-to-back, against a player who was in the middle of announcing herself as an NBA-caliber rebounder in real time. Fans did not let that moment slide quietly either. Clips of Brink locking her up spread across social media almost as fast as the NBA comment did, and the jokes wrote themselves. One fan posted that Reese got locked up by Cameron Brink, then fell to the floor, and the replies piled on from there. Another pointed out that Brink didn't even have to jump to block Angel Reese, calling it flat-out sad to watch. Somebody else zeroed in on the elbows Reese throws every time she drives, saying she fouls on basically every single attempt and gets away with it because of how physical her reputation already is. One comment cut the deepest of all, saying Reese has zero offense, and it's really sad how she continues to be celebrated for absolutely nothing at all. That is a brutal thing to read about a 3-time All-Star, but it tells you exactly how the two halves of that night landed with fans, the rebounding record on one side, and a genuinely rough offensive sequence on the other. None of this would sting as much if it were the first time Reese put her foot in her mouth with a bold, self-inflated claim, but it is not. Go back to her rookie season in 2024, when Caitlin Clark was breaking attendance records, selling out arenas across the country, and single-handedly moving television ratings numbers that the league had never seen before in its history. In the middle of all that, Reese decided to make it clear that she believed it was not just one person who changed the game of women's basketball. "It's because of me too," she said out loud, about a rookie season where she was clearly riding a massive wave that someone else had generated almost entirely on her own. Historians, she claimed, would look back at 2024 and prove her right. And this pattern goes back even further than her rookie year. During her time at LSU, Reese was more than comfortable calling herself the best player in the country, out loud, on camera, without much hesitation. That is a massive claim in a sport filled with generational college talents, and it raised eyebrows even then. But here's the part that makes it genuinely hard to defend. Some of those bold declarations came right around stretches where her own performances against real competition, including matchups against players like Cameron Brink back when Brink was still at Stanford, were not exactly dominant shovings that backed up the label she was giving herself. Saying you are the best player in the country is one thing if the tape supports it every single night. Saying it while getting challenged in real time by the very players you are supposedly better than is a much tougher sell.